There are some general rules of solubility of substances. Each rule will be presented in the following scenes. The first rule is polar solids are more soluble in polar solvents. This scene takes place in a basketball court.
Alright everyone, let's gather first. As we all know, our team does not have enough players, but no worries as we have two newcomers to our group. Well, since there is only one spot left, the one that will be the team's new member is the one who scores the most. So, shall we start? Alright Hanif, you first.
The whole basketball team represents the polar solvents, which in this context represents water. Notice that Hanif does not have a good scoring skill. This represents non-polar solids.
Alright Izan, it's your turn.
Notice that Yizan have good scoring skill. This represents polar solids.
Okay everyone, I have the results already. Congratulations Yizan, you are the team's new member. Well Hanif, don't be upset, you can try again next time.
Yizan becomes the new member for the team because of his good scoring skills, while Hanif is not being accepted. This shows that the polar solids is soluble in water, while non-polar solids are insoluble. Well, this represents the rules of polar solids are more soluble in polar solvents. The second rule is polar organic substances such as sucrose dissolves in water, but not in hexane. This scene takes place in the library.
Eh? Why are there just boys here? How am I going to study? I'm too shy when I'm surrounded by boys. What should I do then? I think it's better if I go to the next room.
In this scene, the girl represents sucrose, while the boys in the study room represent hexane.
Phew, this is better. I think I'll just study here instead.
In this scenario, the girl represents sucrose, polar organic substances, while the boys in study room 1 represents hexane and the girls in study room 2 represents water. Notice that there are differences in gender. At the first place, the girl was uncomfortable to study in study room 1 because she was too shy to study in a room full of boys. This shows that sucrose is not soluble in hexane. If we add sucrose to hexane, the hexane will float on top of the sucrose with no apparent mixing. Meanwhile, when the girl entered study room 2, the girl decided to stay because they are of the same gender. This shows that sucrose is soluble in water. As the water is polar, water can dissolve polar substances and ionic compounds as well. The third rule is non-polar solids such as wax does not dissolve in water but dissolves in hexane. This scene takes place at a cafe.
Hi everyone! I'm Shakira, I'm a new student from Kuching.
Hi to Shakira.
Do you guys mind if I join you?
Sorry Shakira, but we don't hang out with K-pop fans.
Yeah. Come on, let's go.
In this scenario, Shakira represents wax, non-polar solid, while the group of girls represent water, polar solvents. The girls not wanting to hang out with Shakira explains that wax does not dissolve in water.
Do you know BTS want to come back this September?
What? Are you serious?
Yeah! Are you excited? Excuse me? You guys, are you a BTS fan?
Yes, we are. Are you?
Of course! At last, I found someone who has same interests as me!
Hey, do you know this?
In this scenario, the group of girls that are fans of BTS represents hexane. Shakira can get along with the girls because they share the same interest, which is being a fan of BTS. This explains that wax dissolves in hexane, but not in water as wax and hexane share the same bonding. The fourth rule is like dissolve like concept. The scene takes place at a basketball court.
It's okay, Hanif. Let's try again.
3 minutes break.
Hey, Hanif, are you okay?
Oh, Captain, I feel bad for scoring badly. I just managed not to manage to score at least once.
It's okay, Hanif. I noticed that you did better at dribbling rather than shooting, so I wonder if you can do it this way. I suggest that you be the attacker as soon as as you're approaching the scoring area, you can pass it to me or the other group members.
That's a brilliant idea, Captain. Let's do this.
In this scenario, Hanif represents polar solids, sodium chloride, while the basketball team represents water. Notice that Hanif is good at dribbling, but terrible when it comes to scoring, which tells us that he has both positive and negative sides. This explains the polar solids have both positive and negative charges. Polar solvents, water, and ionic compounds can easily dissolve other polar solvents because of the presence of both positive and negative charges. The charges will cause the compound to break into individual ions. For example, sodium chloride, when dissolved in polar solvent like water, will break into sodium ions and chloride ions. The fifth rule is polar liquids such as water and ethanol are miscible. This scene takes place in the boys' dormitory. In this scene, it is Yizan's first day in Unimas.
Hi there. I guess you are my new roommate, right? Nice to meet you.
Hi, nice to meet you. I'm Izan, and you are?
Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot to introduce myself. I'm Irman.
Oh, and anyway, are you by any chance a Manchester United fan? Because it seems that their posters are everywhere.
Ha ha ha. Yes, I am. What about you?
Of course, they're awesome. Did you still remember they win by 3-0? That's awesome, right?
Yes, who will forget about that? Ha ha. Yes, but our class is the same as.
In this scene, the boys represent polar liquids. The polar liquids are miscible. Notice that although they have just met each other, they get along pretty well as they share the same passion towards a football team. Their shared interest represents their similarity in polarity. Both polar liquids are miscible with each other because they have the same charges and same polarity. The sixth and last rule is polar liquids and non-polar liquids, such as water and petrol, are immiscible and form separate layers.
Alright everyone, let's gather here at once. I have news to share with all of you. The administrators have decided that starting this year, we are going to send the basketball teams under one team, which means all of you will be under the same team.
But coach, you can't be serious, right?
What's wrong with the idea that all of you as a team? Alright everyone, let us begin our training. Hustle, hustle, hustle!
In this scenario, the two opposing teams represent polar and non-polar liquids. The lack of chemistry between the two teams shows that polar and non-polar liquids are immiscible. The forces of attraction between the non-polar molecules are much weaker than the hydrogen bonds between the polar molecules. The non-polar molecules are unable to disrupt the polar structure because of the strong hydrogen bonds between the polar molecules. So, the non-polar molecules remain as a separate layer.